just want to first of all welcome you to Mimi Meets. I'm so glad I can
Thank you.
talk to you today because Joyland has been seriously the most powerful film I've seen in a long, long time.
Thank you. No, I've been very excited to talk. I had seen your conversation with Rasti. It's so refreshing and it's so good to hear somebody ask things that are full of meaning and things that, excite us to talk about.
Yeah.
And it's detailed and it's fun.
Exactly. Like it was just mainly just about like the film and how it made us feel, all those things. I think you're this enigma that people want to like know about because you're nowhere to be seen. and thanks to Rusty. I just want to thank Rusty first of all, like for connecting us, because I was like, I don't know how to kind of get in touch, but then Rusty was so sweet and kind enough to connect us. Before we talk about Joyland, what's the first film that made you fall in love with cinema?
No, that's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. You caught me off guard with that one. I like it. I like it. I think there were a few that I watched very like in a short span of time.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
Full Metal Jacket. Apocalypse Now.
Mm.
Heat.
Yeah.
Clockwork Orange and The First Godfather.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
You had a background in theater, right? So your acting journey began there. So talk to me about like how that began for you.
This goes back to 2005 or 6, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
I auditioned for a play that some like friends of friends were doing.
Mm-hmm.
They were from a different school and they were just putting up a little murder mystery kind of thing. And so I was curious. And before that, I had just done one thing in school, like a school play. I was excited by it, but I wasn't quite sure. I went for this audition. We were doing like, and then there were none, an Agatha Christie thing, the cute little stuff that kids like doing. And I got the part, and so I got into rehearsal and I found that it was all very exciting. I loved it. I think I was throwing up before we got on stage and all of that stuff. But that still hasn't stopped. But I really liked it. I had a lot of fun, and I was very curious about it. I was very, very curious, and I wanted to see what would happen. I think a lot of things in this, or generally in my life, are guided by I want to see what happens. I just go mad with curiosity, and then we did another play after that the next year, and then there was a friend of mine who I wrote a play with at the time, or he wrote it. I like kind of edited it as he was much better at me than that. And then I kind of helped him edit it, and then we directed it, we performed it, and I think that's when I knew I had some kind of bug. I just had to keep doing it, and it's not the most sensible thing to do. I don't think. I don't think that over here where I'm not sure what the scope per se is, because my family had a fair bit of they were fairly concerned, because you're either an engineer or you're a doctor or you're a banker or you're the most crooked you can be is a lawyer. That's the most crooked you could possibly be, and
I have
anything
a background
beyond
in law. I have a background in law.
I'm almost sorry, but
it's
no,
okay.
I apologize. Yeah, but that's what it was here. You know what I mean? Like, the most crooked you could be was a lawyer, and that you couldn't do much more beyond that. And the family worries about things like, where are you going to earn, man? Like, where's the bread and butter going to come from? And that's a fair concern, and I appreciate it much more now, right? Obviously, I used to like sneak out for rehearsals and things like that, and I think when I finished my schooling, which I was quite horrible at, I was a terrible student, and I finished, and then I took a year off because I think I spent a year just playing music with my friends. Like we played a bunch of gigs, and I did another play, and just I took a year off just doing silly stuff like that, which was a lot of fun. I mean, I don't regret any of it. It's just in retrospect, I'm like, what were you thinking? Because you feel like a lot of time passes, then you're not sure how you let it pass. But I did a bunch of music and things like that, and I did some theater, and then I, for some reason in my mind, I thought, beyond theater, the only thing then is film. And I don't know why I thought of it as beyond X, there's Y. I don't know why I thought of it like
Mhm.
that. I was obviously very immature. I didn't understand anything. But for some reason, I thought there's a progression from theater to film. And I understand that now in terms of finance, but I didn't think about this then. I just thought the only way for an actor or somebody who'd like to direct
Yeah.
and stuff like that, the only way to go is to do film.
Mhm.
So I tried to look for film schools. I found some. There was nothing here happening like that. I think there was. I don't even think that we had the media sciences kind of thing happening
Yeah.
in Karachi at that time. We didn't have that either, which we do now,
Mhm.
but we didn't have that then. So I found a few places, but they were very expensive, and I had awful grades. So why would anybody take me? And so I found a little art school in Malaysia
Mhm.
that was affordable also, and it was closer than the Western world in some sense. And I applied, I got in, I went, and I lived there for about 4 or 5 years. I studied film. I did a couple of odd jobs. I worked on a couple of films there as well. I got to know some lovely people that are still my friends, wonderful
Mhm.
people. And then I tried to apply for work in like a visa thing, and there was some nonsense, so I came back.
Mhm.
And when I came back, I found, a friend of mine that used to do theater with me back in the day. So
Yeah.
he was doing a play. I went and watched it, and obviously it was just so much fun. And then we just decided to work together, and then we started writing plays and doing plays. And this is around 2011 or 12 or something. And we did a couple of plays together at that time. And then one of the plays that we had written, it was a three-person play.
Mhm.
By the way, you'll hear that in a second. This is my dog yapping. I'm very sorry about this.
That's
Hey,
okay.
stop it!
Don't worry.
Stop it! He's a
It's
yappy
fine. He's
creature.
more than welcome in the chat. He's more than welcome.
Yeah, he likes to think so. We were doing one of those plays, and it was a three-person play.
Mhm.
And it was in a cage. It was in a cage that was like 11 by 4
Yeah.
feet. And it was like a 2.5 hour, 2 hour 45-minute play, just three actors. It's a lot of fun,
Yeah.
a lot of fun. Towards the end of the play, there's this little section where my character, it gets fairly intense, and I, I don't quite remember the whole monologue, but
Mhm.
he's inside the cage, and he's got his hands on the cage, and
Yeah.
he's got his face through the bars, and he's screaming something about something existential, obviously.
Yeah.
And I realized right after I finished the monologue that obviously, as you try to project, you tend to have projectiles as well. And my saliva ended up all over the shoes and pants of Mr. Zia Mohyuddin, who was seated right there watching the play.
Mhm.
Um, and at that time, I thought what I saw was a bit of disdain in his eyes, but as it turns out, he really liked it. And he stopped me when we finished and we were going back to change. He stopped me and he said, "I want to do a play called Waiting for Godot."
Yeah.
And I had read it by then, and then he said that I'd like to have you on as DD in the play. To which I said it'd be a bloody honor, you know.
Yeah.
And then so I think later on that year we started rehearsing to do that play, and
Mm.
we did it. I think the year after that we did another. I remember I directed I have a big like interest in thanks to this friend of mine. I have a big interest in like absurdist theater and things like that.
Mhm.
So I remember laughing a lot when I read this play by Eugene Ionesco. It's called The Bald Soprano.
Mhm.
Um, I laughed a lot while reading it. So I went ahead. I directed that one in Karachi as well.
Mm.
And then it just took off after that. I met
Yeah.
some wonderful people in the Karachi theater circuit. There's a man by the name of Sunil Shankar, and I haven't seen a better theater director than this man. I don't think I've met one who's as talented and as ferocious as him at getting things done and doing them with such passion. You know, and so I met him, and then we just kept working together and doing more and more plays, um, all the way up till I think COVID. all the way up till COVID.
Mm.
It was like once a year, every year we'd be doing a play.
Yeah.
Um, and we were broke as hell, but something kept bringing us back to it. And then COVID hit, and Sunil and I, instead of doing plays, we just kept cycling
Mhm.
all over Karachi because we didn't have anything else to do. And
Mm.
theaters were closed and nothing was happening. So we just bought a couple of cycles and we would just cycle about 50, 60 km a day, um, till all of a sudden uh, there was a festival happening,
Mm.
and I got the chance to do a couple of plays there. One was with him, one was with Khalid Ahmed Saab, who's another lovely, lovely director and
Mm.
actor. I did a couple of those, and then Sunil wanted a short film done, and this goes all the way up to I think 2020, late 2020. I did a short film with Sunil.
Mhm.
I can send that to you. Check it out.
Oh, yes, definitely.
See if you like it. We did that in 2020, and then in 2021, I got the call for to try out for a film, which was Joyland, and
Amazing.
here we are.
Honestly. So how was that transition for you? Like from doing theatre, like now to film? Is it different? Like
I think it is. I think there is there's there's certain differences that are kind of gray, where in the sense that if you're acting for film and if you're acting for theater,
mhm.
the way you'd probably approach your character, the fact that you try and make it as natural as possible and as grounded as possible is the same for both. So in some sense, it's a bit
Yeah,
gray, but where there are differences, there are huge differences. I feel.
yeah,
I feel as though there's nothing like the theater rehearsal process.
yeah.
I find that there's nothing as challenging and as gratifying and as vibrant and as colorful as a theater rehearsal, because you're preparing for D-Day. You're not just preparing for you're not just preparing for a day where you'll get to take 75 different takes and try and
Yeah,
get it right,
exactly.
with a merciful director, and it's not going to happen. You're on set, and you're on stage, and when you're out there, it's D-Day, it's war.
Exactly, yeah.
You win or you lose. um that the thrill of that is just, I'm hooked to that. And then obviously I throw up all the time, like I said, before stepping out on stage, but there's something about that feeling through the course of rehearsal, and the fact that you can construct a character over a period of time,
Mm.
and you can construct it in a way that you're always preparing for the day, right?
Yeah,
And then you don't know what happens beyond that, and you don't know, because you'll come out and you'll do something, but you don't know what happens beyond that, because it's right there, it's happening in that moment. So you have
exactly,
to
yeah.
be as prepared as you are for being in character. You also have to be in that specific moment at that time, and
Mm.
if you slip in that moment, you have to find your way through it. And I love that feeling as a challenge. I love that feeling. And in film, I feel like transitioning into film, in a sense, is, like I said, similar in the gray areas
Yeah,
where you have to commit to something. Um, and the way I like thinking of film, which I'm learning more to do now, is to still prepare for D-Day. Is when we're
yeah.
on board and the day we roll, I'm not going to go back after that. Even if I take a few takes, even if I take a break in the middle, even if we have a lunch break, even if we are shooting scene number 75 before we shoot scene number 3,
Mhm.
whatever it is, I'm still trying to figure out a way to prepare for it as though there's no turning back and there's no second chances.
Mm.
But there are. I still feel in my heart that there are when
You
I'm
have that
on a
discipline
film set.
from like the back in the theatre. You just have that discipline to kind of like it's do or die.
I'd like to think so, because um, I don't think I can approach many things without a sense of discipline. I appreciate a chaotic thing. I genuinely do. Like I feel like there's always that balance, and
Mhm.
I am very chaotic in some sense, but at the same time, I have a genuine respect and like the intention to be a very orderly individual, and so I tend to find a way to discipline myself in whatever way that I can. Whether that means showing up to rehearsal before the director 20 minutes before him, I don't know. If that's what I have to do, just to feel like I'm trying something.
Yeah,
Um, you know, and I feel like in the transition there is that as well. I try and hold on to that sense of discipline,
yeah,
but then you can't take away from the fact that you're playing with a different language. Screen language is, there are variables in it that you can't necessarily just hook in theater, apart from the fact that you're telling a story, but
mhm.
then music tells us. story, and so does
Yeah.
documentary filmmaking, and so does many other various beautiful art forms. And paintings tell beautiful stories. So it's all storytelling at the end. So there is that overlap, but then there is something about film that when you're dealing with all these variables, such as you're dealing with cinematography, and you're dealing with acting, and you're dealing with what the director wants, and you're dealing with the fact that once you're done, you don't even know what the edit's going to look like, right?
Yeah.
And you don't know what the light's going to make things look like. And I'm not a fan of looking at the monitor, so you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And all those variables are kind of out of your hands. And there's a little more teamwork within every frame, because there's an actor or actors that you're working with, and there's a director who's sitting there watching you. There's a cinematographer that's doing his thing, and there's a whole team of a whole tech team that's standing there for
Yeah.
that shot. There's a sense of real teamwork that goes into that, and that's there in theater, but in a different way, in the sense that now you're on stage and it's a bunch of actors and get it done. It's a little more raw. I think, in some sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. Like, so take me back to like that when you got the part of Heather and you went to the table read, and actually Rusty mentioned this, that you were like the first to say there's like a silent cry of anguish in this script. So how was that table read for you?
Man, you really reminded me of something, didn't you?
Oh,
No,
Mhm.
I read it like that when I had read the script initially as well. Recently, there's been some kind of misunderstanding about how the film may be an activisty kind of thing, although it has nothing to do with that.
Mhm.
The anguish in the film has to do with, and in the script actually has to do with. I mean, they're all struggling with certain questions.
Yeah.
They're all struggling with that. I think Heather is struggling with a very serious question of identity, and that tends to really split you apart in some sense. And I know that now. The more I got to know Heather, the more I understood the pain of that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And when it's coupled with being somebody that's an observer mostly and that doesn't speak, his agony is spread across several pages of silence. He doesn't really say it, but it's
Mhm.
burning. Um, and once I read that, I started looking at the other characters with that same, just to see if I could put a thread through it. And I found that it was the same for the father, and it was the same for Fayaz auntie, and it was the same for Mumtaz, and it was the same
Yeah.
for Biba, and it was this, in some sense, maybe for Sohail, um, for the brother Salim, sorry,
Yeah.
because there's something that he wanted. There's something that he wanted his lineage, and he wanted something that he wasn't getting, and he wasn't able to do anything about it. And lo and behold, it's not up to him. But
Definitely.
from his perspective, that is something that he's suffering the pain of. And Nucci is, what she's going through is also just so. I felt like there was this very, very, blood curdling howl that you can't really put your finger on, but it's there
Mm.
throughout the script. And when we read it at the table read,
Mm.
the fact that I could hear it in everybody's voices, the fact that I could hear their words, up till then I had read them in my own voice, and I'd heard them in my own voice, or I'd heard it in Simon's voice. Um, and I'd heard them for
Mhm.
what they were saying, but I hadn't heard it through these actors. And obviously, but none of us sat there in character, obviously, but we all sat there trying to find
Yeah.
something to hold on to, something that we could follow till we found where this character was going.
Mm.
And when I heard that from them, and I heard it particularly from Mumtaz, who's one of the scariest actors to ever exist. When I heard it from her and I heard it from them, I heard Biba's, like, this bluntness that's in her.
Yeah.
And I think because Alina was trying to find the bluntness in that moment, she was trying to find. It's a bit disconnected from who she is. So just like
Yeah.
Heather is from
Yeah.
who I am, and you have to find your way there. I heard her find her way through it when she was talking, when she was reading. But as she was doing that, there was this sense of, there were things that she was thinking as an actor which were
Mhm.
right underneath the surface. There was a sense of fear of approaching the script, and all these actors are sitting at a table and all that,
Yeah.
um, and she's reading it for the first time, and all of us are reading, and we all have that nervousness. And as she's reading it, maybe it was a little bit of that fear coupled with the kind of confidence that Biba seemed to feign sometimes, and that Alina in that moment was finding. And I heard it in her voice too. And then obviously the thing that, because I was looking for this for a long time to find Heather, I was looking for something to hold it together. And I think voices were the most important thing, because he doesn't talk much. He listens a lot though,
Yeah.
and he observes a lot. So he's, and the voice of Mumtaz was something that had to find a way into his heart, so much so that it's blinding almost, that for him.
Yeah.
And that's part of what he struggles with, is that he can hear her all the time. I mean, that's how I feel, is that he can hear her voice all the time. And the thing that's pulling him back all the time is that I can hear her ask me questions that I need to ask myself, and I'm not doing that. Who the fuck am I lying to? Why am I doing that? And that just kept yanking him, and I could hear it as Rasti was reading. That just started creeping into my head somewhere, and it just lined itself carefully around my aorta, and then it just stayed there. And because that voice stayed there, toward the end of that reading, I remember it was very. Simon asked us what we all thought, and he asked everybody sitting around the table, and then everybody had these beautiful things to say. And listening to that was also just, I thought, hey, that perspective, that's right, that's right, that's what it also means. And hearing it from like Nochi in the way that Sarvat was talking about it, hearing it from Alina in the way that she was talking about it, all of it just seemed to sit in a certain way in my heart. And then hearing it like from Taz was one of the heaviest things. And then I began to talk as Simon told me to. And I mean, he asked me what I thought, and that's when it kind of, you're saying something and you're live thinking, but it all kind of makes sense in that moment. And so I think that it was a fairly emotional time, because I finally felt that grounding that Heather needed, and it really scared the shit out of me. Really scared me. I think I saw clearly how far I'd have to push to get that.
Yeah, no, it's so true. Like my favorite scenes, one of them was like, when Mumtaz comes home and she's kind of told, like, if Heather's working now, what's the need for Mumtaz to go and work? And so you just see like the back of her head, and you see her point of view, like she's basically staring at her family, and Heather's like, usually he has her back, but this is like the first time in their relationship when he hasn't had her back. Because I mean, it's like people assume that it would just be like a sort of patriarchal relationship, but it's not. There's so many different layers to it. Like he's constantly listening to her, he loves her, like, and you see that.
Yeah, it's a really heartbreaking scene. She walks over to the sink, and he goes over to her, and he's trying to tell her that he got the job. He's like, just don't say anything yet, because we need to figure this out.
Yeah.
Right. I think that she gets so excited because she's genuinely just happy for him, as she would be, because that's what they spoke about, that I think he feels that we don't know what we're doing because this has never happened before. So we need to strategize this a little better. We need to figure out how to do this a little better. And I don't want to sound like I'm making excuses for this guy, but I think I understand a lot of things that he was thinking in that moment. And I think that he was very deeply concerned about the cost of what he was about to say. And when he loses control of that situation, and she loses control of that situation, now there's no way out.
Yeah.
Now there's no way out. And it is a awful, awful, miserable, inappropriate, unjustified, terrible cost that Mumtaz has to pay. Just the cost of her not going to bloody work is enough. And completely unnecessary, but that's what transpires, unfortunately. And that scene really from the first rehearsal, it just really pissed me off, to be very honest. That scene would really get to me. It would get under my skin quite a bit.
Honestly, it was so like, you feel like so like pissed off as well. Like when I was watching it, I was like, oh my God, like this is happening to her. And she's actually doing so well at work. She's excelling at work, all the stuff, like with the light, when she does the makeup in the dark. And yeah, that's so true. Like there's like they could both work. It's like they could both work at the same time. It shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And when Nucci says that, you know, what am I going to do with all these kids? He says, we'll figure something out. He says that to her. He's like, we'll figure it out. Don't worry. And then his brother comes in to say the thing, and then he doesn't have the spine to start. So, you know, and then we know what happens.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many like layers in the script. Like there's no one's like perfect, and everyone's kind of flawed, and everyone has like you feel like kind of bad for them, you feel good for them. But then so I think that's what I really truly felt. Like I genuinely fell in love with every character. Like even though they could be like terrible to one another, but you genuinely feel for each and every person in the film.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. That's one of the things about this film. You can't really point a finger at somebody for no more than a few minutes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because then you start going like, hang on a second, I understand this. And
yeah, exactly.
That's something that Simon wrote. It really blew me away how he put that down. And he put it together in things that are so simple. Not simple in terms of writing, but with feelings that are so simply human. He just put that down so well. And you often think that as a writer, maybe I can figure that out. But the trouble is that by the time you start putting things together, you kind of get pulled in different directions, and you're so hell-bent on making your story pop out that you sometimes tend to lose sympathy. But Simon just somehow wrote this with such
much heart.
Such heart.
Yeah. And so how was it working with Simon, like on a scene?
Oh, it's been one of the joys of my life, you know, because he approached everything with so much honesty. He approached everything with so much heart, and he's such a patient man. He can be very trusting, and he is. And then when we used to read initially, there's always that bit, you know, where actors and directors are kind of figuring out, okay, what's he doing, and what's he doing, and what's going to happen, and all of that stuff, and that's fun. But as we were figuring that out, I realized that I was speaking to Simon straight from the heart. And oftentimes with directors, you've got a bit of a defense mechanism, and that's natural, and they have one too, and that's fine. But I realized I was really speaking from the heart, and I saw Simon do that too. So I realized the level at which we were actually conversing was far higher than one would have thought at that stage within the first few weeks of meeting each other. Because there was something about Heather that just bound Simon and I. I don't know what it was, but there was something about it that just that Simon knew and that I knew, and maybe we didn't know what it was. Maybe we didn't know what we knew, but we knew something about Heather that he and I just understood in some sense, that grounded us in that in that moment. And then we just kept working off of that. We just kept trying to figure that out. And I remember that, you know, Simon was always thinking, he was like, listen, you theater guys tend to like do a lot of heady things, but you know, and I was like, well, yeah, but this is for now. While we're reading and while we're rehearsing and while we're figuring things out, I'm gonna bug you with a lot of things, with a lot of questions, and I'll try to figure. But when we get on set, then I'm probably not going to be.
You kind of get into the zone.
I'm mostly just going to be focused on what scene we're doing, and I'd rather not get in your way, and I'd rather not anybody try to get me out of my headspace. So he had a deep respect for that, and we discovered that about each other as we went. Simon is truly just he's a real force. He's a real force, and he kept the set so warm, and it was a place where everybody could just be. You know, he was never intrusive in any way. He wasn't trying to you know, keep things in a certain way. Everybody kind of did their thing, and therefore we all had to respect what he wanted, in terms of, like, you know, getting on the set and doing the job. And I know I tried hard to give him that, and I hope it translated, because I have a lot of love for him. I have a lot of love for him. I have a lot of love for his process. I have immense amount of love for the words he put on paper, and how he, you know, he would do we would do some takes, and he would say, you know, hang on, I think that Heather's heading, you know, Heather thinks this right now because of this. And then he would say, hang on, maybe he's thinking this because of this. And then we try and find a middle ground. And then, he was perfectly comfortable, and so was I, with going like, okay, let's do one like this, let's do one like this. And then Simon's line that I will never forget, split the difference. And then we try and meet somewhere in the middle. And eventually we'd have, no matter where it was going, what it was honest. And
Yeah.
as an actor, that's what you really want. And I would, as a director, I would suppose that's what he wanted, is just the sense of honesty, which we were giving each other, and therefore giving Heather and giving the film.
It was that level of trust and communication that was just so vital when we started filming, because that, and it shows, it honestly shows, like the sort of vision, like Simon's vision completely translated, and you see it through your performances.
Yeah, he took care of us. He took such good care of everybody. He took such good care of everybody on set and off set, and he was so good to us, that you feel like you feel compelled to deliver, because you have the time and the space to give your character that respect, because he's taken care of everything else. So you give your character what he or she deserves, and I saw everybody commit to that, and it's such an important part of this process, just to have that reassurance, and to have that trust, and to give that trust, and to give it. It's yeah. So it really just warms my heart when I think of that, and I really wish that other directors and actors get to feel the same feeling, or I get to feel it again. And I hope that I hope we all feel it again, and everybody feels it, because that's really when you can tell a story without any hesitation. That's really when you can commit to something without slipping in any way.
And so how is it like to kind of like get into the headspace? You mentioned like getting to the headspace of Heather. Like, how difficult was it, like, to then kind of get out of the Heather headspace?
To get out?
To get out of the headspace of Heather, like.
Yeah, it was very, very, very difficult. We were taking a bit of a risk. But by virtue of it being our first feature, and how far are we willing to push for that? But then the script just demanded it of us. Don't bark. I'm having acting conversations. Sorry, my dog is just. Hey, Puff. I've got another pair of dogs that's right outside this window, and every time he sees them, he thinks that it is an intrusion into his space, and therefore he becomes madly
really
defensive.
Territorial.
Yeah. And they're being fed right now, so he's like, "You're feeding them."
Oh no. You? That's the problem. That's the problem he's having with it.
Yeah. Poor chap. We knew taking a bit of a risk. It was our first feature. How far do you want to go with that, and how far do you want to push, and all of that? But I like I was saying, I think the script just asked us to do that. I know it asked me to do that. I can't necessarily speak for everybody else, except I can speak for Mumtaz. I know where she went as well. We had so many conversations in those days about where we were going to get there.
Yeah.
And so once it was done, I told myself that I'd give myself about 6 months to find my way out of that space, just that loop, that those questions that just kept haunting me, or questions just kept roaming around in my head, these very, very Heather questions, and they had to do with a lot of things that one doesn't speak about, because Heather doesn't speak about them, and the price that he pays, and to some extent they still are. So I'd given myself about 6 months, and I don't think I didn't get that time, but there was another project coming up right after. So I needed to do something that was a little more urgent than to wait it out for 6 months, and to, take time. I tried to do the quick version,
like to expedite the process.
Right. I started to eat a lot, which I couldn't be doing at the time that I was doing Heather, because I had to maintain a certain kind of weight for Heather to be convincing enough. And I knew the next character coming up was a little bigger and older and broader, and a bit of an adventure and that type of thing. So I had to. So I was like, you know what? The first thing I can change right away that won't hurt me inside, apart from nausea and a bad stomach, is just food.
Yeah.
So I'd eat like 2 burgers in one sitting, or a large pizza in one sitting, and and lots of biryani and whatever would come. I'd eat a lot, and I started working out a lot harder, and lifting much heavier so that I could try and work my way out of that body. Because sometimes you look at yourself in the mirror every morning and you're like, I know you, but something's wrong with you. And
Mm.
then, but when your body starts changing, then you look at yourself a little bit differently, and you're not sure who you're looking at, and that's good in that sense because you're working your way out of your previous skin in some sense. And so I that's the first thing I did, is try and change that. And I came back to Karachi because for the past while I had been away from my family and my friends, and
Yeah.
everybody wanted to know what was going on and how it went and all of that stuff. And I
Hmm.
found that I had to keep going back to that space to find answers for them and for
Yeah.
myself. So I bought a ticket and I went back I went back to Lahore.
Hmm.
I checked into like, a hotel, and just tried to stay for a little while, without having to answer people, and to like just to find my way out of that space, to to walk around on my own, to eat a lot more, to just to
Yeah.
find my way back. And I think the next project helped, in that way, in that it gave me something to do and also forced me to expedite the whole thing. Um, and I remember there were days during that project too, where I'd tend to try and write things out so that they kind of get out of my head, just away in paper form, where I can close a damn book and set it on fire or something so it goes away. Um, but it I remember there was still things just
Mm.
that I had to keep pushing. And I think it took me a fair bit of time. Um, by the time that Yeah, by the time the film was done in terms of the edit and all that, by the time we started traveling with it, is when I think I found that, okay, I have just enough distance.
Uh-huh.
I have just enough.
Honestly,
I
like,
think that's how that.
yeah, because I remember having this really weird experience when I saw the film at the London Film Festival, and I'm thinking I couldn't recognize you and Heather. Like, I completely think of them as two different people. Like, I was like, wait a minute, this is Heather. Oh my God. Like, I just couldn't, like, and it's the look, and even Rusty mentioned it's like the look in your eyes like was so different, and it was completely like a different human being. And she even treats Heather as a different person. She's like, no, Heather is completely different. He's not Ali at all. He's completely different. It's the look.
I would hope so. That would mean I might be getting some things right about my job if if I
You
can
did,
make him
you did.
believable enough for him to be something else than that. Then that's. I mean, that's what I hope. That's what I tried to set out to do.
Yeah,
I
you
will
were
hope that that's.
unrecognizable. Like, I was like, I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw you at the London Film Festival. I honestly couldn't believe my eyes that this is the person I've just watched for the last 2 hours. And I was like, wait a minute, this can't be it. Like, it's like something. And actually, yeah, even Rusty mentioned like a funny story where no one really recognized you in Cannes as well. Like, when you were, everyone, you kind of just went,
Nobody.
and you probably had to check your pass to make sure this is the guy that's supposed to be here. No, this can't. Wait a
Yeah,
minute,
yeah.
we're
I was at the
expecting
photo
somebody else.
call. I was at the photo call, and
Mhm.
I think it was our publicist or somebody. Great guy, I love that guy. But he said hello, and then kind of when he was doing something, and then I was
Mhm.
kind of standing around, and I could tell he kind of gave me side eye like that, going like, the guy's wearing a tag. I'm not sure who he is or why he's here because we're supposed to be doing the film thing. Maybe he's a friend. I don't know. And then I think it was later on that day, or right before we went out for the pictures,
Yeah,
where he was like, "Are you in the are you in the are you in the
you're the
film?"
guy.
And I was like, "Yeah, I did a part in the film. I did the guy Heather and things like that." And he was like, "Oh." And this just kept happening through Khan, is that people didn't but then the joke before I left was, because it's very stressful when you go into something like this, because there's going to be red carpets, and there's going to be protocols, and there's
Yeah.
going to be premiere, blah blah blah. So you're like, oh God, I need to look presentable,
Mhm.
and I'm not very good at that. So how do I do that? And then I had decided that I'd do the suit things because I like suits, and I like all of that. I like
And you had
the old
long
school
hair.
gentleman. I did. It was a little longer than Heather's for sure.
Mhm.
Um, and I was planning to grow it back. I've most of my adult life or late teens has been with long hair, like up to
Yeah.
my waist at least. That's how I like keeping it usually. So I was trying to get there. I was trying to grow it out. Lo and behold,
Mm.
my age won't allow me, but I was still trying. And then
Mm.
the joke was that if I keep a big beard, then people will think I'm a better actor because they'll think, oh, if that guy could play that guy, then he must be a damn good actor,
Mhm.
right? But the joke ended up becoming, we don't know who this guy is because he has nothing to do with the film.
You
It was
literally
quite
have to
funny. I
have the
laughed at it.
tag on at all, at all times to make
Yeah,
sure people kind of let you into places.
yeah. I had no idea. It was quite funny. It was very funny.
Yeah, no, it must have been like I actually I just wanted to tell you this because when I watched you as Heather, I was completely awestruck. I was like, yeah, the look, and for me it was that stare, that sort of signature Heather stare.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
really it got to me. Like it was like, and you see him open up throughout the film so much. Like from the beginning, you see he's quite timid, and then when he goes to the dance theater, it's actually quite good for him. Like he becomes like so you just see him open up more.
Yeah. His body kind of, it's that thing that I think dance gives him that
That an
something
outlet.
to express something, yeah. And he
Mhm.
finally gets that. So I think that it means so much to him. It means so much to him to be able to do that, and to do it without judgment, and to do it with a sense of, to find a sense of confidence in something that vulnerable. I mean, when you're dancing, you're really opening your body up. Your arms aren't attached to you like his are all the time. You'd find him like this a lot, but
Yeah.
you're more vulnerable when you're open like that. And it's not just about being confident, it's about being as vulnerable as you are confident, to allow your body to open up like that. And I think that really gave him something. I i remember though that after we shot the dance sequence,
Yeah.
I think I went to a really nasty place in my head, and I remember talking to Simon about it, and I just felt like this is what it took for him to feel this sense of thrill. This man has nothing. He's got nothing, you know.
Mm.
He's got nothing. You'd every now and then you'd be at a bloody wedding and you'd dance for your cousins and come back. You wouldn't feel anything. But this meant so much to him. Something like this just meant so. It's not about getting the job. It's really not about
It's
that. Maybe
the sort
started
of
as that,
sense
but
of
it's not.
meaning in life.
Yeah, it's to get something out there. And even that he didn't do with complete honesty, did he?
Yeah.
Like the fact that he opened his body up was honest, but he realizes that the tools he used to allow that dance to happen were borrowed from somewhere, and
Mm.
that did break his heart. And that really hit me that evening. Really hit me in a big way, in a big way. I was quite hurt by that,
Mm.
when we had done that.
It was so
Uh,
powerful, that entire performance. So how was that choreographed? Like with was it Gulshan? So
yeah,
how was that for you?
Gulshan. It was really stressful. It was really stressful. I'm an awful dancer. I can't move for my life. I really cannot. I'm terrible, so I don't have any way of doing this. And Gulshan, bless him. He was so patient with me. He used to work some days like 8 hours a day,
Mm.
you know, over a week, just 8 hours every day, or it was 3 days or 4 days or something. But over a span of time, it was 8 hours. Um, and I remember just how much he just kept working with me, kept pushing, and he kept trying, and he kept, you know. And I get really like, I like the kind of thing where I'm up against something that I don't understand or I'm not good at, and I have
Mm.
to push through it. I love that feeling. So I just pushed really hard. And there were times where Gushin would say, just stop now. You're not there. Just stop, stop pushing. And I'd be like, no, I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna get this right. And so I remember having that thing with Gulshan, but I trusted him to like know when to set me off and when to hold. And then I learned to do that more and more with him. And he was so patient with me. And then we had, Bobby and India
Yeah.
and Nelson and all those guys, and Tipu. I remember them being there, and they got everything, with a snap. Those guys are
Mm.
pros; they can do it. And I was struggling so much, but they also put a lot of like effort in me, and we had a lot of rehearsals leading up to that day that we had to shoot that. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think we shot it from like 5, 6 in the morning to like 2 at night or something.
Wow.
Um, so we went quite a while, and that includes the stuff that he had that was the scene just before and all that stuff too. So we did end up going really hard for that scene. It was really tough. I mean, it was really tough. I'm not good at dancing, so it was it
Mhm.
was really tough to find that thing in my body and my mind that was just there was heather enough to just let it go,
Mhm.
um, and to find the freedom in that, uh, and I think that was really tough for me.
Mm. And also like I wanted to talk about cinematography. Like it was such an important part of Joyland. Like the love I have for Joe's cinematography, and like there's so many different stages of color throughout the entire film. Like you have like dull moments, you have like vibrant moments. There's so many different stages of color in the entire spectrum of the film.
Joe is such a I love Joe just as a human being.
Hmm.
He is he's the driest person you'd meet. His humor is so dry. It is so much fun spending time with him,
Hmm.
because he'll say the darkest thing in the room and he'll say it with such beautiful dryness that you just want to go and hug the guy, you
Yeah.
know. He's so good at that. And then, when he's working, he's almost a soldier when he's working. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? He's just he'll power, and I have so much respect for people that can just stick to their work and like go till the end, just to like,
Yeah.
you know, trudge through the muck and to get there. And Joe just he would be at it, you
Mm.
know. And then I remember there were these lovely moments where no matter what state Heather was in, Joe found something with me, and a
Mm.
great connection with me. So I would trust him enough too, and he would know that we'd be okay, and he'd come and say like, move 2 inches to the left, or
Mm.
keep your chin up and move a little bit to the left,
Oh.
uh, you know, and then and then I'd just be like, okay, I got it. We just had a thing. That dance sequence, with the
I know.
shot that's going around them on the thing.
Yeah.
I remember that at some point, Joe, Simon, and I were having so much fun with that scene. I'd look over at Joe and he'd be like, "Would you like to do one more?" I'd be like, "Yes, yes, let's
Mhm.
go for it again." And Simon would be like, "You want to do one more?" I said, "Do 10 more. Just keep going. Don't worry,
Yeah.
it'll happen." And we just kept going. And the way Joe tends to, one of the things I was worried about initially was that when you find somebody to capture these things that this film is saying, and you might be worried about the fact that when somebody who hasn't lived in this environment, who hasn't seen these spaces, hasn't understood the
Yeah.
walls, hasn't understood what these people's faces are like and how light touches their faces, and maybe the fact that their heights are the way they are, the fact that their skin is the way it is, the fact that
Mm.
the streets, you can't necessarily go down and tell the guy in the shop, like in front of the thing, that look, I need to set up a big bloody light outside your thing because they have a tiny window over there that needs like a speck of light going
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
You know, but the thing about Joe is that he somehow just he found his way into these spaces via character, I feel. Not because of who we are as actors, but because of who he is when he reads. He found his way into those situations and that space through what I perceive, and I could be wrong, but through character and through space. He found that. I mean, I know that Simon and him just figured it out together, obviously, but there was
Mm.
so much of it that I saw Joe just do because his hands had and his brain had and his heart
Yeah.
had that capacity to just understand these people. He found the humanity in them rather than the color of their skin, rather than their language. You
Mm.
know, he found that and he held on to that. And every frame, to me, every frame says that.
Yeah, it
And
does.
Joe
It
was
really
just a
does.
blessing. He was a blessing.
It was like honestly like for me, there's so many like different scenes, but like I mean, I love that scene where Biba and Heather are in the room, and you just see like the neon lights flashing across their faces,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's so well done.
So Kaval Khusat's team was working on. on the set in the art direction, and I've worked with them after that as well, on a play that I did with Rasti and Kaval and that team. They are such. I mean, how do I put this? They are just they're absolute artists. You
Mm.
know, they're absolute artists that understand the intricacies of these things like you won't imagine. You know, from the texture of the curtain that you're looking at.
Yeah.
Oftentimes you'll say, okay, no, the curtain's on the edge of the frame. I just needed like a bit of a silhouette, and I need a little bit of a
Mm.
thing, and I'll shoot through it. We'll be fine. But it was about the texture of that curtain. It was about exactly which part of the wall had a little pockmark in it and why it had that in it. And her team and and we're doing that. And so when we got to that scene, just the fact that, I mean, it says so much about Biba to have those lights. I mean, she's a performer, and she's a big performer,
Yeah.
and she's brilliant. And so she goes to sleep in that room every day, and she spends time in that room every day.
Mm.
And every now and then, I'd imagine she turns those little fairy light thingies and those little
Yeah.
spinny fun lights, and she just sits there, and she's in the light where she belongs. She's in the spotlight.
Yeah,
She's there
exactly.
in that light, and she
Mm.
knows what it looks like on her hands. She knows what it looks like on her face. She knows what those lights feel like in her
It's
eyes.
stunning.
And there's a comfort she has with that, and and so you'd imagine that and the fact that Kaval and obviously through Saim and Joe and all of them together understood that so well, it added a layer to Biba's character that I didn't have to worry about it. She didn't have to worry about it. These are things that Saim and Joe and Kaval and Faiq and their team just did, you
Mm.
know and they
Yeah, like
brought
even
these
like
layers to
small
us that,
things. Like
yeah.
there's a stereo, there's a laptop, there's like a calendar, like of what she dreams about at night.
Exactly. These little things that they just that added so many of these really complex and beautiful layers to our characters that unfortunately we're getting credit for, where it's not due. You know, they it was all them, and that scene in particular that you're talking about in her room.
Mm.
Like I said, it says so much about Viva, but two, to experience that and I hadn't seen the room before, and that was
Yeah.
good because when I sat there and we were rolling, and I don't think I walked into the room before we started rolling, maybe for a minute or two, but I didn't understand the space at all.
Mm.
So I really just walked in there when we started shooting, I believe. And when I sat there, I could really experience it, and that intimidation and the awe of that space. I could feel it there, and I couldn't even understand where the hell Joe was in the room, to be very honest. But he
Mm.
has a way of just disappearing into the framework and kind of
Yeah.
capturing you in a way that you don't, you just don't see how that's possible. But that's it. We just had this team that, I don't know, man. Like, Mimi, it was we were so lucky. I mean, I was lucky. I mean, they're bloody professionals. I was just lucky to be a part of this thing. I was just lucky that they lent themselves to this script and to the story the way they did, because it just
It just captured
really, I
like
saw it, blew my mind.
they captured like the sort of emotions in the film. Like there's so many different emotions you feel throughout the film, and at different points in the film, that you just kind of like you feel like I felt so many different emotions throughout those 2 hours. I can't tell you honestly. Like, and one of the most powerful scenes was like like the funeral scene. It really stayed with me for days, and like that's what I mean. Like there's vibrancy, but then there's also like those sort of like really cool to harsh tones, like dull scenes that get you. Like I can't tell you, like that scene literally stayed with me for like weeks.
Yeah, yeah. No, that one was that I um that was a rough one. That was a rough day.
Mm.
That was a very rough day, and I think a part of me I knew that Simon and Joe wanted this thing from the back. I knew
Mm.
they were going for that because when we went for a test shoot, we had spoken briefly about it, and they had walked me through the house. This is obviously one of the things about Simon that is just that I should have said earlier is that the fact that he pre-produces with the focus that he does, and the
Mm.
fact that he rehearses as though it's theater, and the fact that he is he has something here, and he's gonna go for it. He's already imagined what it is, and that's half the thing with this work,
Yeah.
with this job. Um, And so I remember that day I knew they were going to do something like that.
Mm.
And when I stepped into the room with the people that were there, and I remember feeling very small, and um, I remember feeling really frightened,
Yeah.
and obviously grossly alone. And I mean, the guilt was probably the worst and heaviest layer of this. Um, and I remember doing the walk around, and I knew that they weren't about to get around to the front. I knew that they weren't about to do that, but there was something so heavy in what I was feeling during the walk around that,
Mm.
I just knew somehow that whatever Simon was seeing was what I was seeing, and whatever Joe was seeing was definitely what I was seeing. I mean, I was looking through the Heather thing at all these people that, and then moving around
Yeah.
the thing. But somehow, uh, maybe because we had shot all this stuff before that, or whatever it was, and the fact that I trusted them to be as brilliant as they are,
Mm.
Simon and Joe, and I really felt that even when I saw it, I felt like I might as well have been holding it to. Obviously, I can't do what Joe did because I'll never be that good at what he does. But I really felt like the weight of that movement was with them as much as it was with me in that walk,
Mm.
in the walk around thing,
Yeah.
and it was really, 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 really something. And you're right, the colors that they used in that scene, and the way Symes had it colored since, and the way that he's put that scene together,
Mm.
uh, it really it you realize in that moment, you think the film is about something, and you realize in that moment that that's not what this film is about. This film is about this, is what we're looking at right now.
Mm.
That's what this film is about. And it's before you're able to even understand that or settle it, that it takes you way further than that. And
Mm.
then, your heart breaks into a million pieces, as mine does when I watch it, every time.
Mm.
It's a horrible feeling.
It was like I was like it took me a really long time to kind of process that scene. It was like it was just like when you have so many thoughts in your head about like what happened, and it just like really gets you. It just really really like just grabs you. And
Yeah.
I honestly I don't think I felt speechless like that at that moment when I watched that scene. That's the last time I think I remember feeling so speechless when I
Yeah.
saw. Like even like when I
Yeah.
saw,
That.
when I met like after the film finished and you kind of did that Q&A, I was still trying to get like over that scene. So like I was still kind of processing that at the back of my head.
Yeah. Yeah. I fully get it because I have trouble processing it. Still, I've seen the film several times, and
Mm.
I'm not sure that I would like doing that much to myself anymore. I try and avoid it as much as I can. I remember the last festival I was at. I was Mannheim Heidelberg Film
Mhm.
Festival, where they had asked that you do an introduction and then watch the film, and then I
Yeah.
was like, well, I'll do the introduction and then I'm going to step out, and then you guys can watch the film. I'm
Yeah,
not going to do that.
exactly.
I'm not. It really just things come back, and it's not. I really. It gets. It's a. It's not in. It's a. I mean, I'm so proud of it. It's my baby. That film, as much as it is all of ours, and it belongs to the world now to experience that. It gets too heavy, so I
Yeah.
tend to not watch it because what you're feeling when you watch that, what I assume you're feeling, and from what you're saying when you watch that, and it's kind of hangs about. It kind of like the Grim Reaper. It kind of sits over your head,
It did. It
with
did.
a sickle on your shoulder, and you're kind of sitting there going like, Q&A, really? I'm supposed to ask questions right now? I don't even know what the hell my name is.
That's
Like,
exactly like how I was feeling. I was like, please, can we please have like 10 minutes? I was literally inside the film still.
yeah, I get you. I get you. I mean, we when we the first time we watched it was at Cannes in that
Hmm.
theater, which is so intimidating and it's so frightening.
Yeah.
And I guess I didn't get to really enjoy it that day because I think I was just overwhelmed by the fact that we were sitting there and are we really here and all of that stuff. And I was
Hmm.
quite terrified. And then there's that discomfort of watching myself on uh, I don't like that. And so there was a lot of that I was processing, and it wasn't nice. And um, I watched a lot of Mumtaz in that first screening at Cannes.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll definitely talk about that. I was I was once it ended, it was just when it hits you like a ton of bricks, when you realize that's not what that feeling, somewhere around that scene, we realize that's not what this film is about. This
Yeah.
film isn't about them, it's about them. And when that kind of hit me, and the waterworks started, um, you know, all of a sudden it's over, and all of a sudden now you need to like be very charming and respectful, and you need to do little bowing things, you need to smile at people and thank them, and we're just like muck and mush, and and all of that, and we all worked hard, and if it's not
Mm-hmm.
about you, it's about all these people that worked, and just own this for them and for yourself, and stand there and receive this, and but I tried to stand still, but I couldn't stop my face from quivering, and
Yeah.
from all the snot and tears.
Mm-hmm.
So that feeling that you're talking about is was so big at that time, and it was so
Yeah.
heavy, and there was so much pain in that moment when it ended. It's heavy, man, and it really, it takes a while to go away. It takes a while to go away. I remember we had a party that night, and I was at home, and I was, well, at the Airbnb, I was changing, and I was like, a
Are
party,
you
really,
seriously having
right
a
now?
party right now?
How is that, how are we going to do that? Like, I don't know my name, don't know thoughts, have no idea, um and then we get to this thing, and there's a lot of people, these wonderful people who were really appreciative of the work, and I really wanted to commit to them and to talk to them in depth,
Yeah.
and to answer the questions they had, or to maybe try and figure out what they were feeling, and to know how they felt about it. I really wanted to do all of that. But my brain was just, there was a wall. Uh I was just under this wave of things, and it was just heavy, and
It,
it's been there ever since. Like every time we watch it, it's like, oh, come on.
yeah, it really is heavy. And especially like when you've been involved with these people like throughout the process of filming. So for you, it literally is your baby. And so when you see something like that, it seriously, yeah, it takes a lot to like kind of get out of that.
Yeah, yeah, it really takes every ounce of patience and strength you have to find your way out of that. It does get that heavy. It literally does, though. I mean, it
Yeah.
really, really does. And I mean, I can see the hard work that, you know, I know that there's a significant amount of luck that's behind our success, and I'm happy about that and proud. But I know the hard work that these people, everybody around it, I know the hard work that I've put in. I know the hard work that everybody else had put in, and has
Mhm.
and is putting in every day still, you know. Um, and I'm just so proud of that when I see it. That's another layer of this, right? That there's a layer of watching it and feeling what you feel. Then there's the layer of, oh my God, we did this, we made this. And then just knowing what Kaval was doing at the time, and the fact that she was lying in the other room like this, waiting because she had to prep the next thing, and the shots weren't done. And Saim, who was endlessly just sitting there with his chai and just
Mhm.
trying to focus on getting this thing done. And Joe, who was, he'd been carrying the damn thing, his back is hurting and all of that stuff. And Sarvat, who's like trying to squeeze in a little bit of rest before she has to go and do this scene. And everybody's just, dealing with things. And Mumtaz, who I know is Rasti, who's just who's I know is sitting there and in her head, and she's unpacking all these things about Mumtaz and about that relationship, and she's sitting, and she's really, it's like she's kind of half buried, and she's just got her chin out, and she's trying to figure out where to go with this thing. And I get so immensely proud of everybody that even that gets me bloody emotional, right? I'm a bloody softy at the end of it. So I'm like, I don't want to be thinking all of this right now.
Yeah.
I get super emotional about it.
It seriously like I remember like I saw that moment at Cannes you were describing, like it was, you can sense that emotion was there, like, and you're one big family at the end of the day, and so when you kind of you feel those emotions together like you would with your family. And
Yeah,
actually yeah, and I even like me watching it as an audience, I was feeling those emotions with you guys, like I felt like a part of it whilst I was watching it, and that's really rare for a film, like like you feel so involved with it after just watching it once.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's like it's
Mm.
written with such a laser focus on the humanity of it, rather than
Yeah,
saying the things. It's about these, and those feelings are they don't have, they are very Pakistani, but they are very everything else as well, and they can
exactly.
spread beyond, like, where you're from, and it's so simply human that that's what I'm saying. There's something simple about it that reaches out to everybody, but then there's something so complex about it that you still understand, and that we hope that everybody gets. And so far, people have been seeing it, and they've been getting it.
Everyone, like even like people who aren't like South Asian, they understand it. Like they completely understand the emotions. Like at the film festival, we were sitting with like predominantly the non-Asian people were sitting next to us. So and they were laughing with you guys, they were crying with you guys. And even like the Punjabi scenes where everyone's being like really kind of like bad to each other, like in Punjabi. But then like those
Yeah,
scenes, like I'm thinking, wow, like there's so many like different backgrounds that are resonating with you guys, and that's the power of this
yeah,
film. Like all around the world, like people are basically just have kind of become involved with it because of that humanity.
yeah, yeah. That's it's exactly that. And I just, every time we see that, the fact that it bleeds through just that South Asian bracket, and it tends to go and
It
hit
does,
other
yeah.
people where it hurts, and where you really feel it.
Yeah,
Uh, there's something about the timing of this film. There's something about the way that Sam wrote this, and that he worked on it for like 7 years. The
yeah,
fact
yeah,
that he worked on it for that long, just figuring these characters out and going through all those drafts that he went through to put this thing together, and then going ahead and just trusting us to kind of say what he wanted those characters to say, and then trying to figure out not only how to say what he wants best, but what we feel toward it too. The fact of it that somehow that it was luck, it was timing, it was effort, it was everybody's life before this, that we just found our way into this mix that ends up, just yanking, I feel, empathy out of people. It's really amazing to see. It's really, I'm so proud of us, and I'm so proud of the film for doing what it's doing,
you should be.
without us like
So
sitting behind it, kicking it forward. It's kind of doing its own thing.
yeah, it's so
Um,
comfortable in itself that people kind of want to be a part of it, like that, because it's not trying to be like another film. Like it's not trying to be too Western. Like you know that you see films where like you think, okay, if we do this angle, it might be more appealing to an audience who aren't South Asian. But it's so comfortable in itself, that Lahore Punjabi, like that sort of Lahori like life. That sort of is just, that's what I think people like loved about it.
yeah, yeah. There's a grittiness to it. There's a groundedness to it that Simon really figured out,
Mhm.
and that he found in himself first, and therefore in these
Yeah.
characters, and he must have interacted with the world, around him growing up, with these characters just somehow finding their way into his heart, and then he just put that down on paper. And when you commit to them like that, the way he did,
Yeah.
um, the question is, why the hell won't we? And so when we give that commitment, then it's like, we believe in this. Somebody's got to see it, man. Like, somebody may just see it, and lo and behold, it I feel as though everybody watching it tends to understand that feeling, and it's really powerful to be able to watch everybody going through it. I obviously look at it from a certain perspective because I was there when it happened, and I haven't yet managed to distance enough to just watch it, right? But
Yeah.
I see other people. I've seen my family, I've seen my friends,
Yeah.
I hear from you, from people around the world that I've spoken to, when we've been around, with the film at festivals. I see them talk about it. I see them experience it, and I can see that thing in their eyes and in their face. And I go like, you know what? I think we got to them. I think we managed that,
You,
and it's
you
really,
did, like
there's a lot of
honestly.
pride.
Yeah. This is seriously one of the most powerful things I've seen. And I just don't know how, like I have so much love for this film. Like I can't tell you enough. But even seeing it once, I really can't wait to watch it again when it comes out in the UK in Feb. I'm gonna go, literally, I'm gonna take everyone with me, because last time it was just my brother and I. went to the festival, but I'm like telling everyone, like, we're gonna go and make this whole outing, we're gonna go and see it again, because I cannot wait to watch it again, because it's so like, it just, I don't know, it just grapples you, just kind of like grabs you, and you just I honestly have so many like emotions that I feel for this film.
That's so, it's you know, it gives me so much warmth to hear that, because in some sense that is what we set out to do, outside
Mhm.
of being honest with characters and all that. We did set out to like somehow find, give people, like, to get to people's hearts in a sense, you know. And you,
You
from
did.
what you're saying, and from this, you know, I feel like you felt a lot while watching it, and I feel like you kind of let it take you where it wanted to take you,
Yeah,
rather than, you didn't commandeer the vehicle into like, I want to talk about this, or I want to analyze this with the film. You kind of, you were like, okay, I'm watching this thing and it's taking me places, let me see where it goes. So thank
exactly.
you for giving it that, for like surrendering to where it went, where it was taking you naturally. I
Mhm.
wonder though, what did your brother think, and what was the room like when you watched it? What was
It was
everybody's? Um,
it was like, I mean, like, there's so many like different people from different backgrounds, but everyone was laughing at the same time. Everyone's like quiet at the same time, and it was like you can just see like everyone had the similar emotions. Like we were all like in we like with sitting with strangers. All the strangers are having the same feelings that you're going through at the same time, and I think that's what it really did. Like, and like yeah, my brother, like, he has so much love. I can't tell you. He has so much love for this film as well. Like, actually, a funny story. We went to, when before we saw the film, we actually met up at the apartment where Lina and Purva were staying, and then we did like a sort of shoot with like all the
oh
ladies.
yeah, you did. Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
It was like,
so
it was on the first, second floor or something like that.
like maybe an hour or two before, where we had Sarvat, then we had Rasti, Alina, and Apurva, and they were getting their makeup and hair done, but like just kind of getting the natural like poses of just them doing the makeup, like stuff like that, like capturing those moments. And so, and you know, usually like the pictures and red carpets can be so stressful, and
Yeah,
so those real moments were captured like at the apartment, and
yeah, the organic stuff, you know, the stuff that really, that really gets you into space with where these people are, rather than the flashy, you know, posy
yeah.
things.
And actually, when you guys come to London again, we'll do the same, because to do the pictures of the guys,
I'd be more than happy. I'd be more than happy.
get those
It's all
natural moments.
apparently I need like a bunch of pictures now, and I don't have any because I don't often take them. So, you know, even when I went for the Joyland audition, they were like, "Can you send us a few headshots?" And I was like,
Yeah.
I, I don't know. So I just sat there very awkwardly, you know, and took a stupid picture and sent it. They were like, "Can you take a proper bloody picture?" And then I sent them like just
Yeah, it has to
dumb
be a
stuff, and
certain
they were like,
frame, certain size, or
yeah, yeah. And they were like, can you just show up? And when I showed up, they were like, okay, now we somewhat know what your face looks like. And then when we got done with the audition, they were like, okay, can you send us some more pictures so we can send it to the production? And I obviously couldn't do that either because I didn't have any. So it was quite a dreadful, dreadful little thing that I did to them. It was quite terrible. But I, you know, so I would love to do that. I'd love to have any pictures taken in
no,
which I don't
he
have to do
said,
posy
yeah.
things because I'm horrible at that.
No, he said I would love to take pictures of Ali, Saim, Sarmaji, all the guys of Joyland. See when they come again,
Yeah.
like to London or even LA. You never know. Fingers crossed. That big. I'm not jinxing it. I'm not jinxing it, but in March, you know, that moment in March.
I know, I know, I know. By Jan 24th, there's we'll know.
Mhm.
So, you know, like I said, and like you were saying, fingers, arms, head, everything crossed so
Everything
that
crossed,
we see what
basically, yeah.
happens.
When you guys came back after the film had finished and everyone applauded, it was just basically, that was such a proud moment, because I kind of like felt that for you guys. I don't know why, but like I felt so proud for you guys at that moment.
Yeah, you know, those moments are always like, I mean, I feel that sense of pride in those moments, but I'm also like, I don't know what to do here. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know, is it fine? And I'll just kind of stand awkwardly because, you know, I don't know what to do. But there is a feeling of like, there's that sense of gratification, and that you know, where you feel like the audience has experienced something that you were telling them as a story, and the fact that they get it, or the fact that they understand, and they
Hmm.
understand these characters in a way, and therefore in some sense they understand you and what you were going for or what you might have been thinking at the time that you were doing this. That feeling, it really like it it's overwhelming obviously, but it's a bit frightening, and there's also a sense of appreciation in my heart for that kind of thing, because I'm like, thank you. I feel thankful that they came out to do this, and I feel thankful that they lent their time to this thing and that they allowed the film in. They allowed it to get into their space and to do things within their heart and soul, and it really is something that the audience is doing for us as well, which is the work that we don't see when we're watching films is all of the stuff that happens before, when we're trying to prep for it, when we're trying to figure out what to do with it. Like I was saying, like a lot of the things that we had to figure out for Heather was the voices that he has in his mind. Not that he literally hears voices, but the voices that he has, that he's got, that are part of his conscience, or let's say a part of his archetypal structure in some sense. And one overpowers the other sometimes, and all that little chaos happens inside him that he tends to not talk about. Like I said earlier, one of the biggest voice there is Mumtaz's voice. And so we know that some of us knew that when we were getting into this and when we're filming it, and we're going through all these moments while filming, and some moments are real and they're kind of just happening right there, and some are prepped for, and it's all, everybody's just trying to achieve that one thing. And so when you interact with an audience after that, that's allowed themselves to be vulnerable enough, or allowed themselves to be entertained enough, we were thinking of when we were trying to put those voices together, and you see that they may not know that it's voices, but they do know that something's happened, that they feel something. It's a really interesting feeling. It's a really interesting feeling to just see people experience that, and then to talk to them after that. Obviously, like, I can't say that I'm the best person to speak to after something like this, because I'm usually, I don't know how to handle those things, but there is so much appreciation that I have in my heart for the people that get out there and allow that to happen to them. It may seem like we're just out here watching a movie, and we're just sitting here and watching a film and seeing what happens, and maybe that's how they walk in, but then the film takes over at some point, and that means that they allowed it to take over, and it allowed it to take them through wherever they were going. And that's what this film really needs you to do. It really needs you to, like, listen with your heart, right? Like it really needs that kind of thing, and that's what it's saying in some sense, at least to me, is that we all need to listen with our hearts more. And the fact that I see an audience do that, I feel so relieved and so thankful that they're allowing that to happen to them, and that all of us that were there figuring those voices out, or figuring out, where these characters were going, or why they were doing what they were doing, and that we fought over it and argued over it and talked over it and loved over it, laughed over it and wrote over it and all of that stuff. It's so worth it when you see it received like this.
It honestly was, like, I felt like I it's just like it stuck with me for maybe like a month. Like, it took me a while to kind of just process the entire film, because like and everything else, like when we came back, and when I watched something else, like for example, I'm just sitting there like comparing my like feelings about like the feelings I had for Joyland. So like that, like no other film I in the like the recent months has been able to kind of make me like feel like what Joyland made me feel. Like, it's so weird. Like, I'm watching a film now, and I'm just comparing, like, it doesn't compare to this emotion I felt when I watched Joyland. That's happened to me in the last few months.
No, I'm sorry that you're feeling that, but I also feel good that you're feeling that. So there's a bit of a thing here. But it is one of those. The film is one of those. It's special in its own way. And I'm not saying that because it's in my filmography that way, but I'm saying it because it means something to me when it touches people like that. It really does.
It stuck with me for months, literally now. And so like you see the family life, and you kind of like you involve yourself with the family, the Rana family, and then you involve yourself with the dancers at the dance theater. So it's every single moment, like it just touches your heart. It's just made with such like pure heart and soul.
Yes. I feel that when I watch it. I felt that when we were making it, and I feel it when I'm talking to you, and I feel it when I've spoken to some people that have been kind enough to like convey this to us or to me. There's really something special in this film, And you know, a lot of things kind of just they just happened. They just happened. I mean, luck was on our side, or God was on our side, or you know, and there was hard work and all these things. But something happened in those moments that I really, really I think back to now, and I go like that. That was a one in a million. Like, you know, it was a one in a million. Like we that those moments don't happen. They don't happen. So many of those moments were with Rasti.
Yes, yeah.
Those moments don't happen. They don't happen. They don't. I've been doing theater for a very long time, and not nearly long enough to know things, but like long enough to feel some things. You know, they're actors that I respect so deeply that I've worked with, and they've all been lovely, and they've all taught me a lot. And working with them, you'd think that in theater, when you're on stage and you have to be in that specific moment to like let that feeling take you where it needs to take you as a collective with
Mm.
your cast or with your fellow cast or your co-actor in a scene. You feel it going in a certain direction, and then you feel like you have to nudge it a little bit. You have to nudge the scene so that it gets back on track, and then obviously your co-actor feels like they need to nudge it so that we can find that little balance and then move with it. But there's something about Rasti's instinct that's so scary. It's so scary the way she is able to, the way she's able to kind of, she has a feeling that's very specific. I don't know if she's got the words for it. I certainly don't. But there's something her instinct tells her is that this specific feeling is where I'm going, and she has such a library in her mind about how to maybe find that,
Yeah.
or her instinct takes her there, and she hangs on to it. And as a co-actor in the scene, I can feel that happen when she hangs on to an idea and she feels it. Now, that's a moment where you feel like if I latch on to her, we'll go somewhere special. And that's great, but that it doesn't end there. She kind of holds this thing and she really gently just tosses it at you. You know,
Mm.
whatever that feeling is, whatever that direction is, whatever that instinct is, she tosses it at you. And it doesn't hit you in the brain. You don't need to process it. It hits you in the feels, you know, it hits you right in the heart. You go, that's where we're going. And then you get to take that and you get to bring your own instinct to it. And then it just, with her, it's like you're playing, you're dancing almost, or you
Yeah.
know, although that's a terrible thing for me to say. I can't claim to be responsible for dance in that sense, but it's like you'd feel playing a great sport, you know,
Yeah.
when you're physically just you've reached your potential of physicality, and there's nowhere you can push further than that. And Rosti's beyond that point, and she's going, "Hello, you want to try this instead?" You know, and then you tend to break it, and then it just something happens to the scene. It just goes, and so much of that is just that very dangerous and beautiful instinct that Rasti Farooq carries. Very, very frightening stuff to be around, and very inspiring to be around, and that's part of why I think that it hits, well, us and everybody, that when the third act starts up and you see that scene that we were talking about earlier, when you
Mhm.
see that and and like I was saying, and you know, it, it's not, the film isn't about them, it's about them, or the film isn't about this, it's about that.
Mm.
That feeling hits you, and I've been thinking about this. It doesn't hit you just because that's how it's written. It does hit you because it's written like that, but it's not only that. What it
Yeah.
also is, that there's a commitment that you feel toward this boy finding something, and you're not sure what it is, and you know where his honesty lies, and even you as an audience are kind of lying to yourself when you're letting him go free and letting him explore this infatuation that he's got. And
Mm.
so you see him and you encourage him, but you know something's wrong, and you know you're upset at him too. And that's because there's some soul that Mumtaz has pumped into this space that you see at home,
Mm.
and it speaks to you as an audience in a, not to be presumptuous, but I've experienced that as a co-actor and to some extent an audience member. You feel it speaking to you in a very personal way. It's
Yeah.
not just that, oh look, this happened and she lost a job and oh my god, she's struggling. You know, it's not activisty. It's not about
No.
like, let's talk
No,
about
no,
the rights of, it's
exactly.
not that. It is just soul and heart. You feel it. You don't think it, you feel it. And then as time passes, you kind of, that's your home base. That's like your north star, and you
Yeah.
veer off of that while this other thing is happening, and you're happy about it. But then all of a sudden, when you realize that the film is not about that, it's about this, is when it comes crashing down on you that it's because it was developed with such honesty and such charm that you can't help but look away at that sense of loss that you as an audience are feeling right now.
Mm.
Otherwise, the film becomes about, oh, affair, whatever,
Yeah, yeah.
right? But it isn't that. It isn't that because you're so grounded in Mumtaz's experience, and that only comes when I feel that only comes when you're dealing with a dangerous actor like that, like Rasti, that takes you by the heart and holds you there. You know,
She really
um,
does. Like I mean,
yeah,
like my brother and I, we have a nickname for her. We call her the chameleon. She just changes. Like you don't recognize her.
yeah.
Like each and it's not even like physical appearance, but it's just like you just see like Mumtaz and Rasti. I felt like she didn't agree with this, but like I felt that Rasti and Mumtaz are so like poles apart. But she actually felt like she saw bits of Rasti in Mumtaz, but like I felt like, oh my god, this is like it's yeah, she's such a daring actor. Yeah.
She is. She is. Daring is a great way to put it. She is that. She's so well read as well. The
Mm-hmm.
accessibility she has to just volumes of information about n- just narrative, not
Yeah.
even as an art form, not as an art form, but the fact that she's experienced countless stories off a page, and not in terms of film, but off a page, because it allows her imagination to, like,
Mm.
show it to her. The fact that she's got all of that, she can construct things out of just thin air. She can just make things out of a silent moment. She can make things out of a heavy monologue. She can just make things out of it, and she can ground it, and you won't realize it for like the first few seconds, but the moment you listen to more than 3 words out of that lady's mouth, you're like, what? You're going there.
You're going
And
there.
then you
Yeah.
tend to like,
Yeah.
yeah, and then you tend to like just give into that and follow it, and that kind of thing is just incredibly special. And Syme is somebody who knows how to bring that out of people. He really knows how to do that.
Mm.
And then Rasti is the kind of person that lends herself to it. She allows it to happen, and she gives it 110%. She gives it, and she works. That's it. There's actors that we know, that I know, that are wonderful actors, and you see them very calmly approach things, and then you see actors that are very like chaotic about it, like I am, kind of like, what's going on, and then and then you see people like Rasti that are a bit of both, but there's
Yeah.
also a sense of just, she puts herself in a gray area where she doesn't know what's going on, and she navigates that with such heart that you're like, man, this is a serious thing. you know she's really working at it, and it's hard. It's pure hard work. It's pure hard work that she puts into play, and then coupled with an instinct like hers, I mean,
Mm.
nothing you can do about it.
You did a play with her after Cannes, didn't you?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why
So
I
yeah.
I can speak from a directorial position as well, because I directed her in that. And there's yeah, I it was a play that I wrote when we were doing the second film that we were doing. I had written a part of it in 2020, and then I spent a couple of weeks kind of figuring out how far I could go with the script. And it was the same thing. I wanted to see what would happen if XYZ, and I just threw everything at these two characters to see what would happen. And I laughed my head off while writing this. And then while getting Rasti, I mean, I heard her read it, and I just asked her off the bat. It wasn't even finished then. I was like, "You gonna do this?" Like, say no, it's fine, but you're gonna do this. And I would look at her like this, and she wouldn't say no. And she was happy to do it. Or so she says. But when she committed to it, and when we started rehearsing, um, I mean, she committed to what she said that she wanted to do it, obviously. And then when we started rehearsing, you could just see, um, the way she'd interpret the text, or the way she'd look at it, and the way that she'd just, it's like De Niro said that. He said, actors often think they have to do something, but just don't do anything. Just be there. You don't have to react and act. Just be there, right? And that's something that comes to her very naturally. So as a director, it's so much fun to work with that because she gives you the kind of canvas you can just throw everything at, and then
Mm.
she lets her instinct pick whichever one of those things makes sense to her, and then she goes with it. So yeah, she directing her was just it's a ball, and I know that Simon feels the same. The energy she has on set is also warm, and Simon loves that. As opposed to my like that kind of energy, I'll just sit and kind of think through things on my own.
The
you
Daniel
know.
Day-Lewis
Um,
energy.
ah, don't say that to me. I'm gonna die. Don't say that.
No,
God,
honestly,
there's
like you gave me like Daniel Day-Lewis vibes. Like
oh
honestly, like a young
Christ.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Oh Jesus. I'm gonna like um it's safe to say that I'm okay with approaching death now that somebody said that to me. you know um he's just the thing about him is, man, he's he is um absolute perfection. You just cannot do what this man does. You cannot. I don't believe that I have ever seen anybody get there. And if there is somebody in the world that gets there, they're still not there. He is, well, I suppose he doesn't do it anymore, but
Yeah,
he's perfect. He's perfect. There's nothing, that word doesn't cover it. He is the end. He's the end game. He's where an actor should ideally go, because he comes from that. I believe what he says is, or what he said once upon a time was, I don't care what it takes, whatever it takes to get the job done. And for me, that means I don't know and I don't care how far I have to go. I need to make this believable. I need to believe it.
yeah,
And I don't have, like he would say, I don't have half of hope in hell of fooling you if I can't fool myself, into this character. So yeah, seeing him uh,
mm,
made me trust that process. Just seeing him do that in his work made me trust that process. So I can't claim to ever be that or be a young version of that. I can't achieve that in my life, but I always hope and strive to, because that man is the absolute best at that job. Nothing can beat that man.
mm. Honestly, like even like Gangs of New York, it's just like that film. Like you
Oh
just
my God.
like I'm literally not looking at anyone else in the film. Just I'm staring at that man.
You can't. You
You
can't look
can't.
at anybody else.
You can't
There's
look at
something that
Leo. You
happens in
can't
his
look at
face that
Cameron.
just you can't. There's something in him that I mean, Gangs of New York is, yes. He's he's terrifying, man.
Yeah.
There Will Be Blood.
Oh my god.
Jesus Christ. I mean, what do you do? There are things that I don't know how many times I've seen that film, and I don't know how many times I've taken just snippets of that film and just stared at. It's like, what are you doing? What are you doing, man? Like, I see this motivation, I see the intention, but what are you doing? How is this possible? And you look at him in something in from his younger days, like In the Name of the Father or The Boxer or something like that, and you're like,
Mm.
really, really? There's that scene in the Name of the Father where he's imprisoned, and his father, who tries to get him out, is also put into prison with him. And it's the first day his father's there, I think, where he has this argument with him. Um, and he starts talking about things when he was growing up and things like that. And there are these little tiny little micro things that he's doing, these things that just they don't you don't have the chance to think of what he's doing, because you can feel it so much. And all those things that you hear and read when you study this thing, when you study this work, don't blink this much and look in this direction, play the camera like so, and keep your Michael Caine eyes open, and don't focus at this, just look at you don't look right
That's
past his left
amazing.
shoulder or
That
what,
that accent
you know
right
that
there.
you know people talk about that, but Day Lewis will be blinking left, right, and center. He's not going to be thinking about it.
He
He's
makes
just
his own
there.
rules.
He's just there. He's in that. He's there. He is him, and he
Yeah,
is
yeah.
there. And so when you're watching him, there's something in that that makes you feel it. It's so overbearing, and it's so intimidating, and it's so real, and it's so grounded that you're like, you know, And from there, you look at bloody, like I said, There Will Be Blood. You look at Gangs of New York. You look at Phantom Thread. You look at, I
Yeah.
mean, oh God, don't get me started on this guy. I'll waste another 3 hours of
No,
your
it's
time.
it's honestly it's so fun. Like honestly, like I love talking about like stuff like this. Like that's why I'm like movie mad. Like just literally, I when I get started on things, I literally just don't stop either. So don't worry at all about that, because like
Yeah,
honestly, it's like it's so amazing to see, like when you see like an actor like just become that person, just be there. Yeah, like you said, just be there. Like
yeah. No, you see it, and he doesn't give you the opportunity to look away, even if he's blinking, even if his face isn't where it ideally should be. It doesn't matter. When you're standing in a room talking to somebody who's screaming at you, or who's like whatever their motivation is to do what they're doing, they're not focused on where their face should be, apart from their intention to say something at you, or when they're uncomfortable with doing that, they might look away at a certain whatever their motivation guides them to do in that moment.
mhm.
And you believe them though. And the same way, like when Day Lewis does something, you just believe it. You just believe it. When in There'll Be Blood, when he's sitting with the person that is supposedly his brother, who claims to be his brother. Um, and his brother asks him, I think, about his wife or something like that, and he goes,
Yeah.
"I don't want to talk about these things." Um, and there's a little pause before that, uh, and he's talking about, right, yeah, what he's talking about. He says, "I have a competition in me." He's sitting there with a little glass of, like, I think a little bit. It was a shot glass, bigger than a shot glass. It was one of those small uh, Peaky Blinders type glasses, and
Hmm.
he's sitting there, and he's I think he's drinking a whiskey or something in front of a bonfire, and he's telling him, he says, I have a competition in me. I don't want other people to succeed, and I can't do this on my own. And then he takes a sip of his drink, or he knocks it back or whatever, and then there's this pause where he kind of swallows it, and he's musing over the thought in it. So I think, I could be completely wrong, and hopefully Day Lewis will tell me that I'm wrong, and then I can just talk to him, but
Excuse to talk to him.
he just, if he ever sees this, and so he sips it back, he drinks it, and then he just pauses as he swallows it, and he seems to be processing something, and then he lets out a sigh, and then he says, I can't do this anymore with these people.
Mm.
And the way he says people, he's obviously looking down at people, or whoever these other little minions are in his world of competition, and his
Yeah.
world of wherever he's at. Just that little pause, just the way he didn't. I don't know if he planned it. I can't claim to ever know that, but I feel it's instinct that took him there. I don't think he planned it. I don't know if Paul Thomas Anderson necessarily told him to put that in. Or I don't think he would with Day Lewis. I think you'd let him find his way. And he does that, and he says these people, and there's a pause before that, and the way he says these people, you can see the condescension in him, and you can
Mm.
also see this sense of loss in him, and you can see this heaviness when he's, because there's the subtext, well, not the sub, but there's a layer of the fact that they're talking about his son, who may not ever hear again.
Yeah.
um, just that thing, I don't know how many times I've seen it, because there's something he's doing there that is just, I maybe I mean, I can unpack it too much that it's not enough somehow. And there's
Mm.
there's something about it that is just so timeless, and there's something about it that you feel it. That's what it is. You feel it. You can't, that pause and everything before and after, you feel it. You
Yeah.
can't necessarily see it or speak it, but there's something that you feel in that moment, that is telling you what this man may be capable of, which he then shows you right away after that, which is terrifying, as a character and as an actor. It's just terrifying to be able to command that kind of performance. You
You're
know,
right. Like that, even like I've heard rumors that when he's like at lunch, like after when he's filming, like during lunch, he literally just like stays in that character, and he literally when he orders food, like apparently I think he still like kind of talks in that same way, and that's amazing. Like
apparently he does. Apparently, but here's the thing, right? This is what he says. He's like, isn't what we're doing weird enough? The fact that we're acting is weird enough. So the fact that I have to order lunch like that, why is that weird? And I completely get that. And particularly, I mean, even if you look at it from a technical standpoint, he's dealing with accents that are not easy. Well, not for me, there must be for him. But on top of that, he's also dealing with voice because he tends to change that so well
Yeah,
and with such commitment that if you drop it for a second, you may lose it. I don't know. Maybe that's a technical way to look at it. But
like Lincoln, his voice is unrecognizable. Like
gosh, it really is.
it
It
feels like
really
it's
is.
almost like he's done like he's changed the mechanics of his voice box.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like that. It really does. It really feels like that. And I don't know anybody else who can do it the way he does. I don't think there's anybody else that can ever do it the way he does because and so when he stays in it, whatever that means, whether he does that throughout the set, whether he orders lunch like that, or whether he talks to his fellow actors, or whether he sits and sharpens knives in between takes of Gangs of New York and stares daggers at DiCaprio, whatever he does, or he stays in a wheelchair for My Left Foot till his ribs pop. I don't know.
Mm. Mm.
Whatever it is that he does, um, there's not a part of me that feels like that's weird
Yeah.
because it's weird enough. What is the fact that you're having to like look at these lines on a piece of paper and pretend like you're saying them for the first time is freaking weird enough. So why is it weird for him to stay in a wheelchair? Or why is it weird for him to like hold on to his voice and all that? So he is rumored to do that, but I think that comes from just going like, I will do this to the point that I believe it, because if I believe it, everybody else that watches it will believe it.
That's
Otherwise, they will
the
not.
thing. If you believe it yourself, others will believe it because like his films, like you feel that you believe this guy. You believe and every role I felt that as well. Like you believe that he's this person for that moment of time.
Yeah, yeah, no, you absolutely do. Then there's these like the understated things that he's maybe not that well known things. There's one film that his wife directed called The Ballad of Jack and Rose. Watching him perform in that is, I mean, I love that film as well. Not many people, I don't know many people that liked it, and I don't know many people that have seen it. I highly recommend it just for
Mm.
for like for a very quiet experience that really that takes you to a place that you're uncomfortable going to. He does that. The film does that, and he has performed in that. That's another one of his films that I've seen over and over again because there is something that is. It's not as like it's not a character that feels like he's entered into in the same way that a character like Lincoln is, because we may know Lincoln's voice and we may know, and
Yeah,
he
yeah.
finds a way to give you that. That's something else that he very gently steps into. It
Mm.
seems to be gentle. The incorporation of that within him, within his self, seems to be in a gentle way, as convincing as all the others, obviously, and as believable as all the others. But the process seems to be a little more gentle, or it
Mm.
may have been harsher on the inside. I can't claim to know that. But what I do know is that for to watch him in that film is another blessing that we have because he does these extremely vulnerable and very subtle, tiny little gestures in that film, from the way he rolls his cigarettes to the way he is. There's a scene where he's having this argument with somebody that he clearly doesn't like, and he's trying to be as agreeable as he can,
Mm.
which is a general like a an existential predicament for the character that he's playing, from what I remember, and I could be wrong, but the way that he navigates that space as a character, it's so gentle and it's so vulnerable and it's so frightening to see that happen, that you, as an audience, at least with me, I felt so strangely big at the time because he made himself look and feel so small at the time
Mm.
that there was something in that that made me very uncomfortable, and I can't quite explain it. Maybe if I see it again a few times I'll be able to have more words for it, but there's something that he does to you that really speaks to that part of you that you don't want to. It's like your ego expands just watching him. Um, not as an actor, but as an audience member, you feel bigger
Yeah.
than him because you feel like somebody with all this like passion has just reduced himself to something, and you feel like you can swallow him whole if you wanted to.
Mm.
And it's a weird thing that he's able to do. It's a weird thing. Do watch it if you get the
I
the the,
will.
the chance.
Actually, and speaking of like somebody like him, like actually there's an actor called Joseph Mall. He's a BAFTA nominated actor, and he was actually at the Joyland premiere. Yeah, so I wanted to tell you that because I know like because he was like one of the audience members there, and he
Oh, that
loved
means
it.
so much. I remember seeing Rings of Power, and there's the scene where he gets captured, and
Yeah.
Galadriel comes to talk to him. He jumps off of off of the camera like that. He sorry jumps out of the screen, and he kind of he there's it's I thought about that scene a number of times, and I did also tell Rasi to watch that scene. I remember telling her to watch that scene because we started Rings of Power together, but I think that I finished. I don't think she has.
Hmm.
I tend to try and like see a script in front of my face if I'm watching something, just to see like these were the words on paper. Let's see what this person did, right? And I don't literally have the script in front of me. I'm hearing it, so I can imagine it on paper, and I'm watching a performance, so I'm trying to see what that translation looks like. And there's stuff that he does in that scene in particular, because I remember that scene. It stood out to me
One of the
where
finest
when
scenes.
he's saying that I killed him, and he kind of just he played it down in this really balanced, beautiful way. If you get to talk to him, please tell him that I'm so appreciative, and that when I saw him perform, every time he was on, there was something in him that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
really yanking at me. So please tell him that, and tell him
I
that,
will.
please tell him I'm thanking him from the bottom of my heart, and I'd love to speak to him, and I'd love to just convey that. I'm so thankful that he just took the time out to come and watch it.
On a final note, how would you kind of like describe this experience of Joyland for you? Like how would you summarize this?
I think well, it's safe to say it's life changing. I think
Mhm.
that probably sums it up. In that I knew that we were making a film that was very special because I read the script, and the script was so dear to me the moment I read it. Um, I knew that it was whatever it was going to be special. Did I know where we were about to go with it? Absolutely not. And
Mhm.
I think that I think one of the most beautiful things about that film is that because it touched everybody in its own way, when we all went out to make it, we just went out to make the film and tell that story as best as we could. Um, and I think that wherever it's gotten in the world, and it's carried itself in the world, and it's gone off the backs of Simon, Apurva, and Selma, and the lovely people that put it together. I think that just the fact that the film has taken its own life is
Mm.
because it was special, and because it was made without the intention of it going anywhere. It was just made with the intention of it being made, and I think that is something that I'm really proud of. Obviously, like my career path is like it's gotten a nice little highlight, and I'm working with people now that'll help me take my career to fun places and things, and that's great and exciting, and that's also a technical thing, right? Like you can bounce off of something and hopefully find your way to other fun places and all that. But just the fulfillment that Joyland gave us all, and just being associated with it, and just knowing that we all worked hard, that is life changing more than where the film is going. That it asked so much of us, and we all were willing to give it at the same time. I think
Mm.
that is the most life changing film about Joyland.
Mm. Actually, as an audience member, I felt it was like life changing. Like it had the power to do that. Like it honestly did, and I cannot wait for like what's the next for Joyland basically because there's so many exciting things now that are obviously coming up soon. So fingers crossed again. But yeah,
And if things work out, inshallah, and they in some sense, hopefully they will, and if they do, then we'd love to be there.
and so I genuinely, inshallah, hope like it basically gets everything it deserves. It's
Thank you so much, because I mean, I love that you feel that. You know what I mean? Like, we all are just proud of it. It's our little baby, and the fact that it's making you feel the way it does. It's beautiful.
it
It's
really
beautiful.
does. It's so weird. Like in the weirdest way. I wasn't a part of like the filmmaking process, but now I feel a part of it. Like I feel involved with you guys. Literally. When I was watching it, I felt like I'm in Normandy with you guys watching it.
Yeah. No, it does tend to yank you out of your life a little bit, hopefully, and it does with you, and I love that. I love that.
Thank you so much. This has been like so fun, like chatting about everything with you. Like basically we've chatted about everything. Like I don't think we left anything out.
Yeah, yeah. yeah, thank you for your time. Thank you for talking to me. Like I was looking forward to this. I really appreciate that you reached out and that we had this conversation, and I hope it leads to many more. But thank you so much.
I genuinely I really wanted to reach out to you because I was like, wait a minute, I have to. Like, when I saw the film, especially, I was like, I have to talk to Rasti. Well, Rasti, I was like talking to you at the premiere anyway, but like when I was like, wait a minute, I need to talk to Ali because what he did as Heather is just, I can't tell you. Like, I was speechless. Like the look still gets to me. Your Heather look, when you're staring into the camera, you're like, oh my god, like I seriously, like I can't tell you, like I have so many, like so much love for this character as well, like so much love.
Thank you. It's good to hear that. Heather gets a lot of hate uh,
No, no, honestly.
for his weak decision making, but I think that it's really good to hear. I'll let him know that there's
Yeah,
others that,
please tell
that
Heather.
really love him. I will. I will. Thank you so much. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that.
No, I honestly, and hopefully, yeah, I get a chance to do more Joyland conversations. And when you guys come to London and LA, all the stuff, fingers crossed again, we'll do some more like conversations because
Yes,
yeah,
please.
this film deserves that love. This film deserves that time as well. Like to do conversations about the film, like just talking about like the sort of what you guys made. It deserves that, I think.
It was made with a lot of love, and we love it when people love it, and we love it when
Yeah.
people want to talk about it.
And that's yeah,
Yeah,
main reason for doing this is just to kind of celebrate this film and the craft and all the hard and work and effort that's gone into it. And you can just see that like it translates on screen, like that love and trust and like almost that family unit you guys became. You see that. And even when I see you guys at like festivals and stuff, you just see that love that you guys have for each other. And it's just one of the most
we
heartwarming
do.
things. Those moments of like Mumtaz and Heather, one of my favorites, like those moments that you have, like even the smallest moments when she's washing the dishes and he's tying her hair up. And
Yeah, yeah.
like those
Those are
moments,
very precious. Those
yeah.
moments are very precious.
And even like that flashback scene when Heather first meets Mumtaz.
Oh God, that bit scene is such a heartbreak. I really like that's the one that really gets to me. You know,
Yeah, in the window.
it's a precious scene. It's a precious scene.
Yeah.
It really is. I'm happy that I'm really happy about that. I'm
Mm,
really happy about that. Genuinely, really, it warms me to know
mm.
that. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you so much again.
Thank you so much. And
And
it's my absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.
just talking about just the love of cinema, love of films, and love of acting, love of Daniel Day-Lewis. All the just
I can talk endlessly about that. So don't, that's a running discussion we can have every time.
yes, definitely. Yeah, wish you the best of luck and hope to see you soon.
Thank
And
you.
yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll see you soon. Take care.